Hey everyone, Infinite Future here, and today we're going to take another look at the micro bundle by RWRME for the Voltage Modular environment by Cherry Audio. A little bit of a different setting, but we will be staring at the screen most of the time, so don't mind the background too much. The video we are going to do today is mostly about what is micro modules and how did we come to make micro modules. And I also want to talk a little bit about the future of micro modules, because even though the micro modules bundle is already a pretty big bundle, we still have some plans for it. So you might want to stick around till the end till we talk a little bit more about that. But first, let's get into the whole what is micro and why do you want it. So this is the micro bundle as it stands right now. As you can see, it's a nice big list of modules. We tried to include as much as we can, and we are still expanding on it. So we just released these new modules down here, including the blank, are now part of the micro bundle. So if you already own the micro bundle, you will receive these 9 modules right now if you update your voltage library. And some of these are included in the split bundles as well. So there are a few that are in the synth bundle and a few that are in the drum bundle and stuff like that. So if you already own one of the bundles, you will get these modules for free as an addition. So let's get a little bit into micro and how we got here. So the micro bundle actually started to become a thing when we were still working on vaporwaves. Vaporwaves is my, or our, I should say, it's not mine, it's our multi-LFO, which was originally a orderless patch I made containing 4 LFOs which were interconnected, so you could do some very complicated LFO stuff and also had the output of the 4 LFOs. So it was very space efficient, and LFOs are great for basically anything. You can use them for clock, you can use them for modulation, you can use them for sequencing. There's a lot of fun stuff to be done with LFOs. So while I was building that orderless patch, it was really for me both an experiment in learning orderless, but it was also something I actually wanted to use because I like things that aren't too complex, but still allow some amount of complexity. Now, when it comes to modular, I'm not like a giant modular guy, so I don't know too much about modular, and I'm pretty vanilla when it comes to things. So the kind of modules I tend to gravitate towards are the sort of straightforward, easy to understand modules. That's also kind of my musical background, is I know synthesizers. So that's familiar ground for me, but when it comes to modular, there's a lot of modules that are kind of intimidating and that require quite a bit of learning before you can use them. So I tend to shy away from those and use the kind of simpler things, the kind of building blocks. So often when I use modular stuff like Reactor, I will gravitate towards the toy box nano blocks because they are all very nice little building stones, very easy to use and very easy to understand, while still allowing you to do fairly complex stuff. So when we were working on vaporwaves, I was actually kind of looking for something like that. And we were doing a lot of patches like this, just to kind of get a feel for what vaporwaves can do. So we have vapor ripple as a clock here, and we have waves here as a generator. And the one thing that always kind of annoyed me was when I was working on these patches, I had to use up a lot of screen space for things that weren't that important. Like the important part of this entire patch is going on right here, that's the vapor waves, and all the other stuff is just basically taking up screen. Same goes for this patch. Now the main focus of this patch, again, vapor ripple as a melody generator. That's sort of your interactive element, sort of the focus of this patch, but there's a lot of visual noise going on in this patch. And this made me kind of long back to the nano blocks. I sort of wanted something like that in Voltage, something like the nano blocks or the Erica Synth Picker Synth, just something that gets the job done and is kind of out of the way, but still very functional, so you can really kind of focus on the important parts of the patch instead of having a screen full of stuff where most of it is just kind of idling in the background. Now you could argue that you could just zoom out and it would take up less screen, but that also means these controls start to become harder to use. So that's kind of where I asked Chris, like, hey, maybe we can be those people that do that sort of thing. And his first reaction was actually along the lines of, well, I'm pretty sure someone already did that. I mean, Voltage is not new, so someone probably already did that. And it wasn't that much later when he came back and said, okay, apparently no one made this, so maybe we should look into it. And the next day he made a few modules. I think it was the amplifier, maybe the ADSR. And that's sort of where the idea started. Let's make just a few basic building blocks which you can easily slot into Voltage, that don't take up too much screen real estate, that don't take up too much visual headspace, because I'm a big believer that if you have a lot of visual elements that are very in your face, everything kind of diminishes. The very bright thing no longer stands out because everything is bright and blinky, and that makes it hard to keep track of things. So that's where the journey started to make Micro. Now, in the beginning, this was kind of, for me at least, a project that was going to be a handful of just small utility modules that you could splice into your patches to just make some things a little bit easier to do. Turns out that once we started making these, the ideas sort of started to get out of hand, and before we knew it, we had quite a sizable collection of little modules that were all unique and useful in their own ways, and it was kind of hard to really get a grip of where this was going as a project. So when we had a good handful of modules, I think it was 10 or 15, we said, okay, if we are really going to pursue this as a set, a bundle, a little mini environment, we are going to need to tie it together. And that's where we started to work on the design language of these modules. And that's where we eventually settled on this look. Now, the entire point of this look is to make things look consistent, not too visually staggering. Like, there's some color there, but it's all with a purpose. You have the green CV ports, you have the blue outputs and the red inputs. Now, we did our best to make these colors as contrasty as possible, to make sure that it also should work for people that suffer from color blindness, we hope. So if you have experience of that, please let us know. We might have to adjust. And for the banners, we went with a color scheme as well, so you can quite easily identify what sort of module you're dealing with. So we have a bunch of sequencing stuff here, envelopes, then we have utilities, we have our effects, we have our drum modules, and we have our filters. So it's quite easy to discern with the color banners what is going on where. And recently, or actually in this latest update, we also added the blanks, which are really cool because they allow you to type stuff in, so you can very easily make little groupings, which I will show in a later patch actually. So once we kind of made an environment for this thing, we started to think about, okay, so what is important? Because size is just one aspect. You can take anything and make it small, but that doesn't mean it still actually functions well. So for micro, we decided we wanted to have both just simple small modules, but we also wanted to include some pretty unique small modules, like the feedback folder, stutter granulizer, and the ping pong delay are some, I think, pretty interesting modules. And aside from that, we also wanted to make sure that every module has lightweight but high quality DSP inside. So the oscillators are oversampled, as are the LFOs, and we hope that this level of care in our small modules translates to a good user experience, but also high quality patching, which is important, of course. Now, aside from the small size and high quality DSP, we also wanted to include some extra unique features which set these apart from your regular units. So, for instance, in the DC source, we also included a slew with several slew modes, so that's pretty cool. In the amp, we actually have a ring mod mode, so you can do ring modulation with the amplifier. And we also included the option to extend sequences using the muxer, which is actually something I think I do have a patch for. So let's take a quick look. Now, just to kind of show how much of a space saving we managed to achieve compared to the normal Cherry Audio modules, and this is not to be negative about the standard offerings by Cherry Audio, let's make that clear. This is just to show you how much of a space saver it can be once you start to build out your patches. Let's do a simple voice comparison. So let's make a very simple little voice with an oscillator and amplifier. We need an envelope, obviously. We want a filter. There we go. And there we go. We should have a very simple oscillator voice with a little filter going on. So this is like a basic voice. And once you start to make bigger patches, especially if you're into generative, for instance, you will have several voices. And if you're using just standard modules, it will look something like this. And let's recreate this same patch, but with the micro. So let's go for a micro oscillator. A small downside of this being quite a big patch is just looking for micro is no longer all that efficient. But we've made sure that everything has a good name. So let's go with a ladder filter. That's fine. Let's go with a normal envelope generator. So if our generator, our oscillator, our amplifier, and our filter. Let's put that together. Let's take our gate. Let's take our pitch. And let's hook this all up. So we need to have the envelope go to the amp, and we need the envelope to go to the filter. Oscillator in, out. And I've probably forgot something. And there you go, you have basically the entire voice in the size of an envelope, and actually it's slightly smaller because the amplifier is double, so you can actually recycle the amplifier for a second voice if you wanted to. And this is just a big space saving once you start to build out your patches. Meanwhile, you get a nice oversampled oscillator, which is awesome, so it should be good on aliasing. And you get a very interesting little filter here with drive as well, so you can really create some very unique voices. And again, now that we have the micro blanks available, you can actually quite easily keep track of these by just giving them a little name. So you can say this is voice 1 and make this voice 2, voice 3, etc. So even though they are pretty small, using tools like this, you can still make patches very readable. And when you need to get in there to the down and dirty, you can always zoom in. If you need to make those micro adjustments, zoom back out, still be able to track everything. But you just have more space to work with before the screen gets too bloated, which I think is a very cool little thing. And we also highly encourage to use micro with other modules. It's not like we often demonstrate it individually just to show you how much you can do with just micro, because it can do an amazing amount of things, because you basically have access to all the building blocks of basically anything you want to do. But it also works really well with other modules, maybe some more complex modules, because it just frees up that space and that visual headroom. So you can more easily focus on the bigger modules, while micro handles everything kind of more in the background, a little bit laid back. Yeah, it just really helps with the focus and the patching, I think. So even though we already have a pretty big bundle with micro, we just recently released 9 more modules, like I said in the beginning of the video. But that's not the end of it. This is just our first expansion to micro. There's still quite a few little modules we want to add, and there's some real bangers in there. So you really want to keep an eye out on micro. If you don't already have it, I would highly encourage you to get it, because all the new modules will be added free of charge once the bundle is completed. So everything is in there. We are going to have to raise the price to make it match the amount of modules that are in there. So I don't want to be too much of a fear of missing out marketer. I kind of have to, because once everything is in there, we already have 50 modules. It will probably be like, I don't know, 70, 80 modules. The current price point just isn't realistic anymore. So grab it while you can, enjoy it while you can. And if you have doubts about this bundle, definitely check out the demo. You can actually demo the full bundle for I think 7 days. So yeah, do that. I will link to a stream by Chris showing off just how much you can get out of the bundle. And I do want to make a little video later on where I show some patching IDs using the new and the old modules, just to give you an idea of how much you can get out of this. But that's it for today. This video is already long enough. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the little insight into micro, and see you around.